This week, Parshas Tazria Metzora, we find a fascinating idea. Somebody experienced some interesting signs of tzoras, leprosy, all over his skin. He doesn't know what it is, doesn't know what to do. So they tell him, go to the kohen. The kohen will determine whether it's actually tzoras, not tzoras, whether you have to leave the machaneh or you could stay in. Where do we find such a thing? Normally, if a person has a shaila, who paskins the shaila? The Rav. Here we find an interesting thing, only the kohen can do so. Why? Why specifically the kohen? And what happens if the kohen was not such a learned person? What is the representation of the kohen? Answers the Kliyach an incredible idea. He says the kohen represents shalom, represents peace. That was Aaron HaKohen. Oyev shalom v'roidev shalom, making peace between man and his friend. Why does a person get tzaras? So we know, Chazal tell us, because of the sin of Lashon Hara. When a person speaks badly, negatively against somebody else. That's why he gets tzaras. And that, says the Kliyaka, is the reason why he specifically goes to the kohen. Because the kohen represents shalom, represents peace. And it reminds him, when he has to go to the kohen, ooh, why do I have this? Why did I get this? Because I spoke badly against somebody else. I didn't have that avas habriyas. I didn't have that love of somebody else. That's a kohen. A yid came to Rav Aaron Leib Steinman Zatzal a number of years ago with a very important question. He lived in Eretz Yisrael and he got offered a tremendous position of a Rosh Kollel in Chutz La'aretz, somewhere in Europe. So he wanted to make sure that it was the right thing to do. So he came to Rav Aaron Leib and he said, Rebbe, should I take the position? Expecting that, of course, he'll say, yes, what an incredible position. And Rav Aaron Leib said to him, what about your wife? What social scene does she have? Does she have friends there? Who's she going to talk to? So this Avrei pulls out the phone from his pocket and he says, Rebbe, don't worry. We have a phone. Nowadays, you can speak to people from all over the world. She'll talk to her friends all day. And Rav Aaron Leib said, hold on a minute. In this week's Parsha, the Torah tells us that a Metzora has to sit alone, by himself. So Rav Aaron Leib asked this Avrech, what if he has a phone? Is he allowed to speak to his friends on the phone? And the Avrech looked for a minute and he said, yeah, why not? Why can't he speak to someone on the phone? Said Rav Aaron Leib, you see that even with the phone, he's still called alone. And therefore you shouldn't go. If your wife hasn't got friends, it's not going to be good for her, you shouldn't go. Here's a yid, a gadol who has Klal Yisrael on his shoulders. But the avas habriyas, the love that he had for somebody else, for another yid, a yid that he didn't even meet, was so tremendous that is what governs all. That's the message of this week's Parsha. The tzoras is a message of the avas habriyas that we should have to others, and specifically at this time, Sfira Sa'im, at the time that we're going through a mourning time for the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, that we know died in this time. Shaloi nagu kavod zeh lezeh. We should take this opportunity to think about our relationship with others, communication with others, and our love of others. And when we do that, then Beis Hashem will come to Shavuos to be better people. Have a wonderful Shabbos.